What is up? Going off the last video, we talked about the AFC free agent moves, pickups, and then kind of talked a little bit about stock of other players, teams, kind of like the moves they made. So we covered the AFC, and today I want to cover the NFC. I split it into two just to make it not too lengthy. So today I'm going to go over NFC North, South, East, and West. Talk about the pickups they made, how it impacted. So there's some people that moved around that are really cool. It's nice seeing them in a different spot. And then it's also good to see what fantasy value changed. In my opinion, the most fantasy value we're going to get fantasy football season is out of the NFC, just because we're going to see a lot of people that were subpar or got you kind of that average 9 points. Then you could see them looking into getting you the 12, 13 points. And possibly have the blowout games that we want to see a little more often. So that's always cool to see. I'll get right into it. So NFC, I want to touch North. So NFC North was really surprising last year by the Bears. I mean, Mitch Trubisky, who I'm a big fan of, was very doubted on a team that really much has the best defense. I mean, once Khalil Mack came over, that team is surrounded by weapons and just a good defensive team. I mean, they've always been a defensive team, and on top of that, I mean, they're the Bears, so they got a lot to live up to. So once they got their franchise quarterback, they pretty much had the two running back duo to struggle with. And then once they added Khalil Mack last year, they were amazing. In my opinion, they're going to run away with the division this year, and I 100% could see them having pretty decent odds. Pretty sure the Vegas odds for them to make Super Bowl are pretty favorable, and I definitely put them in the top 4 to 5 teams going into the season. So they picked up two people. They picked up Clinton Dix, who for the Packers. It's great to see him stay in the division. It's always a real kick in the dick. And they talked a lot about him last year. He came from the Skins, but he was going to the Packers, and it was a last-minute change or vice versa, something like that. So it's always good to see the internal divisions kind of like battle for the same people, and whether it's coming from them or the fighting for it's always cool to see. So they had a great backfield threat. He's also, I want to say he's like 20. I want to say he's like 25 on the top of my head, but he's a young weapon. Great hands, good leader, so that's a great ad. And then they add Cordell Patterson, which is a great threat for Trubisky. Doesn't have the highest ceiling, but he definitely adds his value. He's also a kick returner, so in fantasy stats, those are freebie points. There's not too many players that you actually would have that are active that fit into that role. And if you do have a player, like I know Odell did it a bit either last year or the year before, so Odell owners got freebie points in fantasy due to that. Very rarely do we get players that are both decently active as a position player and a kick returner. So his value does increase a little bit, but nothing too crazy. Next, we'll hit the Packers. Packers made really one big move, signing Zadarius Smith to a 6-year, I want to say it's like $46 or $64 million contract. So that's a good threat for them. They did lose Clay Matthews. They did lose Randall Cobb. Who else is gone? I think it's about it. And in my opinion, Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, because obviously you're going to talk about Aaron Rodgers, bring up the Packers. They're really on the decline. So I have a big issue with Aaron Rodgers. Obviously, you hear top quarterbacks in the league, and Aaron Rodgers is always going to fall between first and third. I mean, arguably, depending on who it is, everyone's quite biased. Really, you got the Brady Breeze Rodgers, and Rodgers is great. He's only I think early 30s, but he's always injured. Last year, what I didn't like out of him personally was he didn't step into his throw enough. He really just was quite lazy about it. And yeah, they came out and said that he was injured all season and this and that. But I mean, is that just a scapegoat? Was he actually injured? If he was, why was the medical team not taking care of it? Why was he pushing on through? I mean, when you have a franchise quarterback that's paid that much, and he's coming off of a broken collarbone the previous season, I find it hard to believe that you're constantly injured and playing for a playoff spot, if that. So surprising, but anyways, I see the Packers really declining with the Bears and the Vikings increasing in talent. And I mean, even the Lions, I mean, they have to reload quite a bit, but maybe in the right direction, maybe they're not. This year's ads are pretty good. So jumping to the Lions. So the Lions added Danny Amendola which obviously that's a great ad. You really can't go wrong with that. He's cheap. The value is there. Golden Tate is no longer there. He's no longer on the Eagles. So who does Matt Stafford have to throw to? So he's a high fantasy quarterback, makes a lot of throws. The running game is very weak, which they did improve this offseason, which I'll go over next. But you still have to throw to somebody. So Dan Amendola is he's going to be a great late rounder on the bench. And when you have an offseason or somebody injured, you know that he's going to get you something. He produced well last year fantasy-wise and overall, like stat-wise last year, with getting thrown to by Tannehill and there's another replacement for the year, but it's Miami, so it doesn't really matter. So he'll be a nice later rounder that you can grab, and will definitely be of value. Next is C.J. Anderson, so that's great. C.J. Anderson, they have a terrible running game, obviously. I mean, I don't know anybody that wants to justify the Lions running back core, but it has not been fantastic of the last 5 years if you want to really get into it. So C.J. Anderson had a phenomenal game for the Rams when Gurley was out last year, and really showcased a lot of really good things about him. Anybody just remember C.J. Anderson was the running back for the Broncos 2 years ago, and then he played for a couple of years for them, but the last year he played for the Rams when Gurley was injured, and he really showed out. I mean, he was a cheap add-on. So to see him over there, I think he's solid. He reminds me a lot of Damian Williams with the Chiefs. He's just like that big back, Tevin Coleman type guy. So that's good to see. His value 100% increased there. And he is a starting running back, in any starting running back position, anything in the league, obviously, is of value. And last, they added Jesse James. Great ad. Overall, I definitely give the Lions the win in their division of the offseason pickups. Adding Jesse James is good. I mean, he's consistent. Often he's quite healthy. He's played a lot in high pressure situations, playoffs and whatnot. Makes good catches, and they just need the Lions really needed stability, just in their offense. I mean, their defense isn't bad. Patricia is obviously a defensive coach. He is going to round that defense out, but I think he's going to struggle with the offense. And adding consistent pieces like these three guys is going to help him push to the next level of his team, regardless if it's 3 to 5 years of growth. He's still in the right direction. Oh, Cat's very happy to see me. And last, round off the Vikings. The Vikings actually really didn't make any popular moves. They did lose Sheldon Richardson. But overall, like, I personally had the Vikings very high up last year. I still have them up this year. Last year they had a bad one, but I mean, you look at their team offensively, and it just looks amazing. And then you look at it defensively, and it still looks really good. So you're wondering, like, what's the missing pieces here? What are we doing wrong? So I still have the Vikings just really taking the edge over the Packers and Lions in division to make a push against the Bears. I do see the Bears running away with this division overall. Next, we're going to hit the NFC South. So we get the Falcons, Saints, Panthers, and Bucks. Not a lot of movement in this division, in this NFC South division. The Falcons really didn't make any moves. They did lose Tevin Coleman, but overall everything was quite minuscule. They drafted, I believe, 4 straight defensive players, I want to say, in the draft. From what I heard, their draft was overall pretty decent. Nobody really top name, but that necessarily doesn't mean you're not getting great value in the next couple of years. So it'd be nice to see how they round up defensively. The Panthers added one person, Chris Hogan. Chris Hogan was the cross player from New England Patriots. Oh, people are outside. So it's from a team that keep down over there. Appreciate it. So for a team that is so oddly always middle ground, they really just need some extra hands. So we break down the Panthers. You got Kuechly and you got the defense. So hey, I'm in the middle of something here, Brady. You mind keeping it down for me? He looks so sad every time you yell at him. I literally just barked, and I just look at him. He looks like he's gonna cry. I'm a big mean dickhead, I guess. Sorry, bud. So we got the Panthers. Like I was saying, you got Kuechly, and you got just a strong defensive team. So that's really good. I think they need to obviously improve their safeties. Hey, there's people outside. Brady really doesn't like people. So, Brady doesn't like people. He sits here and barks nonstop, growls. I think he's all right. Offensively, I mean, who's Cam Newton throwing to? So when healthy, Cam Newton's either running the ball himself or throwing to McCaffrey, who's an absolute stud. But now he gets to throw to Chris Hogan. I mean, before he had Devin Funches, which, let's be honest, it wasn't really fantastic. And then he had Benjamin, who's been gone for about 2 years. So they are in dire need of, I think, like, they needed to get Golden Tate type person. They needed to go out and get any sort of reliable catching source. And they just didn't. They did draft last year. Rookie running back, I believe, or wide receiver, I believe, first round. Can't remember the name top of my head. I did draft him last year in fantasy. So that wasn't too great, but nothing crazy. So the Panthers adding Chris Hogan, I think, is pretty good. He's also low value. I don't think you'll see any increase in fantasy value. It'll probably be about the same, which is put him in if you need to because he's available and he's a target, but don't look at him because Tom isn't throwing to him anymore. It's Cam. So the Bucks made really no moves. They did lose Humphreys, so they're pretty much down a person, and obviously their quarterback situation is the same because what's his face went over to Miami, so now it's just Winston, who's just a complete so garbage. Like I don't understand what that franchise is doing, whether they want to move on or not. It just doesn't seem like they want to. So really, it's. I don't know. I think if you're a Bucks fan, this is probably a big pain in the ass just to see how all of it's working out. My biggest fear, honestly, was what I think is going to happen is Winston's going to be on his last straw again for his third time. He'll have a great season, and then he'll Blake Bortles everybody where you have one good season, and then from there on out, nothing happens. So that's it for the Bucks and the Saints. So the Saints got rid of Ingram and replaced him with basically Latavius Murray. I love it because Kamara, you don't want Kamara to be a huge workforce at, 24 years old. You want him to pretty much split with somebody that can drive it in all the time. Because if you're having Kamara run your 3-and-1 ISOs, you're eventually going to just wear him down. I mean, that's really where a lot of injuries come from, is like that tight, awkward, push it through the middle to get it. And that's something you can hand to Latavius Murray, that's really their type of job, where they're built a little differently. They're used to doing it. They know how to approach it better. Not that Kamara can't, but you don't want to risk a franchise running back like that of that age. And he's an amazing catcher, and Latavius Murray isn't as good catching. So it's a good balance. It's cheaper. Value is definitely there. He will be splitting, so not somebody you want to take too early, but always good. And then for tight end, they got rid of Watson, but they did replace with Jared Cook. So they did a really good job about replacing these guys, replacing the guys they lost with cheaper versions of close to the same talent. So Jared Cook probably would be considered a slight upgrade. Latavius Murray probably a downgrade just due to probably size and age. But overall, it's all about the money and the money they're saving. They were able to re-sign Teddy, so that's always good to keep on the team. And then, put money into future contracts. So I think Jared Cook's going to work out really well there. I think he's a big tight end, and his value definitely increased. He did very well with Derek Carr and the Raiders last year, even though the Raiders just fucking are terrible and Derek Carr sucks. Cook still showed out on some good games, so his value is definitely increasing there. I definitely slide Jared Cook into probably my 7th or 6th top spot in tight end going into fantasy in the season, so that's always great to see. So obviously I'm going to give the Saints the win here for the NFC South. 2 left to get the West and the East. The West was a great one. The East was the busiest one. So we'll start with the West. So we got the Cardinals. So the Cardinals added Terrell Suggs. So obviously Mosley and Suggs and Weddle are the 3 big players that left the Ravens. So from my last video talking about the AFC, some of the players went over there. The Ravens just disassembled just due to contract and age, which is going to happen. But now those players have to go somewhere, and for some reason Terrell Suggs landed with Arizona. So I know money talks, but I just don't get why he chose the Cardinals out of everybody. I mean, you're telling me Terrell Suggs didn't get other offers from competitive teams or teams, that might have been a better fit. If I'm right, Suggs, I want to say Suggs did not sign a very long contract, maybe a 1 or 2 year. Because I know Mosley and Suggs, one signed a longer one did not. So This dog's gonna start barking. All these fucking people out here. Hey. So, they got Terrell Suggs, and they got Brett Hundley, who was the backup for Aaron Rodgers in. Hey. Who's the backup for Aaron Rodgers in the Packers? So, he's a very minuscule quarterback, but I always like seeing where the backup quarterbacks end up going, how they're doing, and what happens when Kyler Murray struggles a lot. They got to put in Hundley. What I do like about the Cardinals, strategy-wise, is if you put in Hundley, he doesn't really have a high ceiling, right? I mean, he might give you some average games, nothing crazy. And then you put in Kyler Murray, who could do a little bit worse, but also could do amazing, a lot better. So when you're giving the comparison of two quarterbacks, it makes your wild cards look better because they can give you that game. I think we're going to see that with the Manning and Daniel Jones situation, where Peyton Manning throws 4 picks, Daniel Jones throws 1 pick. They both have the exact same game. Daniel Jones looks better. That type of situation. That's just how the quarterback replacement kind of looks. Yeah, I mean, we saw a lot last year with Joe Flacco and what's his name? The guy from the Ravens, the one from Louisville, Heisman. I'll remember at the end of this video, I hope. So, Brett Hundley moved over. Next, we got the 49ers. They added 2 people, D Ford and Tevin Coleman. Obviously, D Ford came through with the trade with the Chiefs. That worked out very well. Both parties. It's a huge threat. He's on the opposite side now of Bosa. I mean, I think the 49ers defense are looking awesome. I'm really excited to see how they do overall with the team. Last year, we didn't get a good look because Garoppolo just got popped by the Chiefs. And then Jared McKinnon tore his ACL during week 3 of preseason. So we didn't really get to see a full scale of that team. So that was a shame. So I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. Rams added 3 people, Clay Matthews, Bortles, and Eric Weddle. So the Rams, again, year in year, are just making away like bandits. Low-paying contracts on both Weddle and Matthews. So adding Clay Matthews is great. It's the veteran presence. You don't need him to do what he did 5 years ago. You need him to be there to be consistent, be a leader, and then give insight to other players you're going to bring in. So that was a very good move that a lot of teams don't do as much, whereas bringing the veterans to help as opposed to rely on what they did 5 years ago and expect them to do it for the next 5 years. So it's a big thing. Eric Weddle was the steal. Oh, my God. I think they paid him, I want to say it was like fucking $2 million for like a year or something like that. This is a veteran, amazing safety. I'm real bummed that the Chiefs didn't go out and try to get him, put him on the other side. But for him to go to the Rams, that team just reloads and reloads and reloads. They're going to be a huge threat, and it's going to be another great year to see the Rams play everybody else. So looking forward to that. And then Blake Bortles, obviously he had to go somewhere. So I love the Blake Bortles backup. I mean, yeah, he might not be amazing, but backups aren't supposed to be there to take positions, especially when you have starters that turn into backups as opposed to backups that turn into starters. So it'd be nice to see how Bortles does there. I mean, I don't see Jared Goff being benched anytime soon, so we'll see him just cashing that money. Seahawks made really nothing. Seahawks lost. Who did they lose this year? They lost their safety. The one broke his leg and then went over to the Ravens, which was a terrible idea. But really, the Seahawks didn't make much moves. They did go out and get wide receiver round 2. So that's something they definitely needed. I think the Seahawks running game is really strong. They got the 1-2 punch. They're definitely of value, too. For this one, I definitely say the 49ers, I think, did a great job adding pieces. And I think that these 2 pieces are better for their team to make them better than the Rams adding 3. Although they added weapons, I definitely get the 49ers D Ford and Tevin Coleman, which is much needed. Great running back depth for a team that's a little fragile. NFC East, everybody's absolute favorite to make fun of, and probably the worst division in the last 10 years. I really just don't understand how teams like the Eagles made it out of it, and how the Giants win any Super Bowls ever with Peyton or Eli Manning. So we'll go over to the Cowboys. Them boys. So they had three people. One being Jason Witten, came out of retirement after having 1 year in the as a broadcaster. That went pretty shitty. I didn't really like him too much. I didn't enjoy him, but who am I? So Jason Witten was what is he, 38, something like that. I guess he was looking pretty good looking pretty good in season. So we'll see how that goes. Time to catch up here. So we'll see how that goes overall. Then we got Randall Cobb. Randall Cobb is another very old player that they added. Not too positive why it was necessary to add, but he's just another weapon for them to throw to. And then last, I believe this re-signed the DeMarcus Lawrence. That was a huge money contract. So they put a lot of money into him. I'm not sure what they're trying to pay on Dak Prescott, what they want to do money-wise for him, but that's going to be their biggest problem, I think, is deciding if that's your franchise quarterback for the next 10 years or not. But obviously, all Cowboy fans are very aware of that. We'll get the Redskins. Redskins had a really good offseason, and they added really one person that matters. So they added Landon Collins from the Giants. Obviously, he was probably their best player aside from Odell and Barkley. But he's your veteran backfield. The contract was, he got paid. And, well deserving. Great backfield player. So I think the Redskins will increase a lot with him. I think the Redskins have a great defense, honestly. Always have. And it's really just their offense. It hasn't come together. I think it's completely going to change for the best now that Geis is going to be healthy this year, because you got to remember they did draft Geis, who didn't play at all, and the rookie wide receiver they got. Oh God, exhausted. Ugh. And the rookie running back or quarterback that they got this year, I think is going to be really good. He's homegrown, and I think it's going to round the team out quite a bit. And if that doesn't work out, then they did add Case Keenum, who didn't have much success as a starter with Denver, but he had a lot of success with the Vikings. So I don't know if we have a kind of like a Nick Foles thing going on, or it's just, maybe it just isn't cut for it, or it was a bad fit. So I'm interested in seeing the quarterback position be played for a little bit better. And that's probably one of my favorite ads is Dominic Roger Cromartie came out of retirement, signed a 1-year deal with them. Couldn't tell you why. I'm not mad about it, but I find it very interesting. The Giants added 2 people, Golden Tate and Jabril Peppers. Peppers is the safety from Michigan that played on the Browns. I am a big fan of him. I think he's a complete stud. I think it's a good deal for them. Although the Giants got rid of Eli Apple because they're the Giants, he is a somewhat good replacement to put him in there. And then poor Golden Tate, man, why did he sign? Did he sign for 4 years? Like, what was he seeing? I love Golden Tate. I mean, this poor guy's been on the Lions his entire career, played for the Eagles for like a year or something like that. So, like, let's get this guy a good new home. And fucking Giants is what he chose. So, I don't know if he loves New York, but it's a real bummer. The Eagles' last team made 2 moves, Deshaun Jackson and Jordan Howard. This is a big one. So these are 2 players that fantasy value is definitely going to increase. I mean, I really didn't have anything increase in the West, and for the most part in the East, nothing crazy. But Deshaun Jackson is loved there. I mean, absolutely loved. And Jordan Howard is somebody who is coming off of just 2 bad years of splitting the ball with Tevin Coleman and just not fitting right. I see Jordan Howard having a huge year. I really do. This is the guy who ran for 1,300 plus yards. 2 years in a row. Like, this guy runs for over 1,000 yards, and they got him for nothing. Now that they got Jay Ajayi and Jordan Howard, Jay Ajayi is constantly injured. So, I mean, if Jay Ajayi isn't injured, he looks great. So that's great for the Eagles. And if he is injured, then you put in Jordan Howard, who's young, can produce, and he's a different scheme. I think the different scheme is going to put Jordan Howard from a, 4th, 5th, even 6th round running back fantasy pick, all the way up to 4 to 3 for certain teams. I mean, I want to know if he's going to be the starter over Ajayi. I see him doing that. I also haven't heard much about Ajayi, how he came off his injury. Really, I don't even know what contract he's under right now. And I think that that really puts to his benefit. And Deshaun Jackson is somebody who gives you those blowout points. You can have a 21-point game with him, or you can have a 3-point game with him. He's a huge wild card, and I personally always avoid him, but I don't think he's bad for every team to pick up. So that's always cool to see. And that's pretty a big breakdown. For the East, I definitely want to say I give the edge over here to. I want to say I'll give it to the Eagles. The Redskins made great moves with Collins, but adding Deshaun Jackson and Jordan Howard, the big thing for the Eagles is they gotta take their youth and run with it. And who knows how long Wentz is gonna be. I mean, deals with injuries. Oh, fuck. Deals with injuries quite a bit. And for all the predictions, there's a lot of MVP predictions, so it'll be interesting seeing what happens. So that's what I got here that would cover the AFC and NFC trades and moves going into the 2019 season, which is coming up pretty soon. Next month is August, so we get to start talking about training camps and preseasons. Games are going to be rolling out anytime, so that's always great. So I'm excited for football. I will be talking about fantasy football segments. That's planning on the next one. That'll be a very long one where I pretty much break down the value of where ESPN, Yahoo, and NFL.com have their rankings. Compare, contrast, and kind of give you the general and kind of give you some tips on when to be taking things like what round you take quarterbacks, what round you take tight ends, and then when to get your second and third, even fourth running back, and when's a good time to kind of pay attention to that. So it's something to look forward to. That'll probably be multiple parters of each category per video. And then we'll kind of get into whatever else is coming up. I know baseball just had its half is going to be starting pretty soon. So Pete Alonso had a great all-star break. U.S. women's team just won. And off-season for basketball is kind of wrapping up for the most part with very few free agents being left that really matter. Or will make the big impact. So go Celtics. That was great. So appreciate the video. Drop a like, drop a comment. Let me know what you guys think about this one. And then looking forward to making more. So thank you. Appreciate the listen.